I want to ask you about investing in biotech and the time horizon you need for that. Are we looking at 10 plus years until something is approved and some cash flow comes in the company, maybe a potential exit? It sounds to me like it's a lot longer, maybe some of the software companies, but I don't know how much longer.
It's definitely longer. It takes a long time to develop a drug. It needs to take time because you need to make sure that it's safe, of course, and that the drug does what it's supposed to do, because the human body is so complex. So even if it looks good in the beginning and you think that this is going to work and this has no toxicity, you never know what's going to happen when you put it into a human being. So when investing, you need to understand that.
Is AI not making the drug approval process go faster?
That's what I'm hoping for, AI and other technologies to actually make drugs come to the market faster and make more innovation, and then also make drugs cheaper, but also make drugs reach patients faster. AI now is used, for example, in discovery. So maybe you don't have to try, 500 different molecules. You can take out 20, try those, and that will speed up the process. One thing that I think AI can help a lot with now already is also the more administrative part of it.
Hello and welcome to the Investing and Other Stories podcast. I'm your host, Margarita, a former Wall Street executive, CFA charter holder, and the founder of Finance Latte, a leading investing education company. I founded this podcast to fill what I thought was missing in the finance industry, a safe place where top women investors would come in and share insights directly with individual investors to empower them and inspire them to invest more of their wealth. It doesn't matter if you've been investing in stocks, funds, and startups for years, or you're just getting started. This podcast is for you. The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered investment advice. Stay tuned for more important disclosures at the end of this episode. I'm so excited about this podcast episode because we will be discussing an asset class that is way out of my comfort zone, and that is investing in biotech. So with us today, we have Lovisa Backemar. Lovisa is a partner at IR Ventures, a life science venture capital firm investing in innovative healthcare companies. She's a medical doctor and holds the PhD in clinical epidemiology from the Karolinska Institute. Prior to joining IR Ventures, she was head of business development at Capio, one of Sweden's leading healthcare providers, where she led strategic initiatives and growth prospects. Lovisa also brings experience as a management consultant from BCG, where she advised mainly medtech and pharma clients. Lovisa, what a multifaceted background. I'm so excited you're here, and a warm welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's get started. Your career journey is so fascinating. So you went from doctor to PhD into business and then venture capital. Was there a key aha moment that made you realize that's the journey you're going to take?
Oh, not at all. Many aha moments for me. I've never ever thought of a specific journey or I want to go that direction or that direction. It's just happened, right? Mm-hmm. So I think I'm interested in so many different things, and I'm also a very curious person. So when I was going to choose what to do after high school, I could go either way because I like business, I like physics, I like math, I like biology, I liked everything, right? Then I got into med school and was very excited about that and started to study medicine. After a while, I realized that I missed a couple of things to make me really thrive. I love numbers. I'm a numbers geek. I love big Excel sheets. So that was something that I didn't do in med school at all. And also I missed being creative and thinking strategically, because being a doctor, you're following guidelines, right? You want to do best practice and want to do what has evidence.
You do not create your own research on the spot.
No, exactly, which makes sense, right?
Yes.
But I missed that part of it. But then I really liked other things like meeting patients, getting this direct feedback of actually helping a human being with a problem and also help them improve their quality of life. So that, of course, I miss sometimes, but I get a lot of other things. During med school, I was introduced to this mentorship program that actually showed a different career path for medical doctors. So there I met investors, I met management consultants, I met physicians that had careers in pharma, and that really opened my eyes that you can do a lot of fun stuff within medicine and also get the other things that make me thrive. And also at the same time, of course, helping people feel better, because that's what I want to do in every single job. When I had my license, And I also started my PhD, and there I got to crunch the data, right? So I really liked that. But I didn't really like the environment because I didn't feel that the researchers were helping each other. Because you're fighting of the same money, right? So that's what happens. You need to keep your data to yourself. You need to keep everything from yourself to be able to make the best studies so you can get the grants and the money to keep doing your research. And that I didn't really like because I thought that we need to help each other out here to be able to develop the research and to be able to actually help the patients in the end.
And that was even within the same university construct?
Yes, absolutely. But I really liked working clinically and also have the research on the side because that fulfilled a lot of what I like doing.
You did something really important work, really important research. Remind us what it is.
Yeah, of course. So I did research in esophageal cancer surgery. This cancer is a really horrible type of cancer, and also it's a huge surgery. You basically take out the whole gastric tube, so the quality of life after is not good at all. So I tried to find out which patient to choose going through the surgery for them to have a long survival, but also a long survival with a high quality of life and not just live a couple of few years with just deteriorated and bad quality of life. So I liked it a lot, but I liked many things, right? So,
and then you went into business school?
No, I've never studied business.
Oh, you didn't
study?
No.
Okay. I started BCG, the management consultant.
Okay, so you went straight from medicine and academia into
consulting. Exactly.
Okay.
So there I got the crash course in business, which was great. I really liked it because here I got to work with medicine, with pharma companies, but also other industries, which when I'm looking back at it, it's very helpful for me today. But it was hard doing it back then. And I got to learn all the tools you have as a management consultant and also the business part of it, which was new to me then. So I worked there for a couple of years. In the end, I felt that I missed the research part of it, the academic part of it, and also I missed healthcare too much because I did some projects in pharma medic, but not really as much as I wanted to, and didn't feel this purpose of actually helping people in the end. And you work many hours, right? So you need to have that deeper motivation and purpose to be able to do a good job. So then I joined the Capio, the largest private healthcare provider in the Nordics, as a business developer and was responsible for their growth, M&A agenda, but also tender processes and other growth projects.
So M&A is merger and acquisition, and what's the tender process?
So in Sweden, we have a public healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes the Swedish public health system wants help providing the healthcare. So then they can tender out a specific part of the healthcare to private healthcare providers.
So they do contractor.
Exactly. So that's basically working with those tenders and try to win.
As many as you can.
Exactly. Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yes. So I really liked working there as well. But then again, I missed research too much. I got to work with healthcare, I got to work with numbers, and I also felt that by developing our clinics and developing healthcare at a more strategic and from the headquarters, I actually maybe helped even more patients than when I sat meeting them one by one. 2 years ago, I joined iVentures. And here I feel that I really get to work with everything that I like. So I get to be close to the academia and the actual innovators and researchers. I get the entrepreneurial side of it to build companies. And also working at the strategic level, we often take a board seat and work with the companies we invest in. And then also, of course, the science, going deep into research, and also the financial part of it, crunching the numbers.
Wonderful. It seems like a culmination of all your prior experiences into this very multifaceted.
Exactly. That's why I don't see it as me jumping from, one career to another career to another. I see kind of a red thread in this whole path. And I've never saw myself, I want to go into venture capital, and that's why I've done all this. It's more been, doing your best and be curious and see and feel that you develop in every single job. Then I think that new things will come. And it's been more and more fun each step I've taken, I think.
I love that you're not afraid to make decisions to move, whether it's in parallel or in a different sector, because a lot of people get stuck, whether it's academia, whether it's medicine. These are decisions people just can't get away from, and even if there's no alignment in their lives. So I really applaud you for doing that.
Thank you.
It's very inspiring to me personally because I've done something similar as well.
Yeah.
Not in healthcare, but I've jumped ship, so to speak. So you touched already a little bit on venture capital. Tell us a little bit more about your day-to-day. What does a biotech venture capitalist do?
Yeah, we do a lot of different things, right? That's also what makes this so much fun. So, of course, to be able to invest, we need a deal flow. So to see many companies, and we get 400 or 500 new deals per year. So there's a lot, just making that first assessment of if we should look further into something or not.
People literally reach out to you, small companies, and they send you their presentation, the pitch deck.
Yes. But that's one way of getting the deal flow. Then in this job, it's also a lot about networking, talking to other investors in this field, also being at conferences, and also, of course, the contact with academia, where the innovation actually comes from. That's also an important part of it too, because we like to follow the companies for a couple of years before we maybe actually do the investments. So that's also one thing we do from day to day. And then we have a lot of pitches as well. So if they come through this first narrow gate, so to say, we listen to companies, and that we also do at conferences and mostly online meetings. It's, of course, going deeper into due diligence, really looking in depth into the companies we potentially want to invest in. And that's a lot of job, right? So we talk to other experts, we look into all the different parts of the company, and we get to learn the management team, and also starting to map out the road ahead to make sure that this company can actually do some good stuff going forward. So that's a really thorough process. Then, of course, we work with our current portfolio companies. We usually take board seats there and work strategically with them. It's also a lot of administrative tasks when you're a fund. For example, ESG reporting, which is becoming more and more time consuming, and just other things you need to do when running a firm. We're quite a small team, so everybody needs to do everything, right? But it's a really diversified job because you get to talk to so many different people and inspiring people, and also get to see the innovation and what's going on. So really cool things.
Yeah. And what I love about what I'm hearing is, and I hope our listeners get the same sort of insight, is that it's a very interesting job and you do not need to be a finance person to do it. You can bring all your experience, and even if it's later in your career, you can join in and use that experience to invest really well.
Absolutely. I mean, we are 6 people in our team and none has a business background.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess within sciences and biotech, you might need a little bit more than non-business side.
Yes, but at the same time, our founding partners have been in this ecosystem for 30, 40 years, and then you also know the finance part of it. So you learn.
We touched a little bit on biotech, but it sounds like a black box for a lot of investors. Can you tell us in simple terms, what does biotech mean, especially for somebody who does not have a scientific background who might want to invest in it?
Yes, I will try. So biotech is very broad, right? It's basically technology within biology, right? It's mostly drug development, I would say.
So the biotech companies will be the companies that are trying to create a new drug and get it approved and then market it and sell it.
Exactly. Often it starts with a researcher, right? Someone that innovated something and started to develop something and found a molecule and understood that this can actually be something. And then a company needs to be created. And that's when we also come in. We sometimes help create the companies and do company creation. So that's the biotech company. But this can have many type of forms and sizes.
I was always curious about the comparison between biotech and pharma. So pharma is when there is a drug and they are selling it and there's cash flow.
Pharma is also a biotech company, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's no difference. Yeah.
Okay. Usually people refer to it more as the bigger companies that already have a portfolio of approved drugs.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Versus biotech that's really early stage. You might have nothing really approved and you're still working on that.
Yeah, but I would say they can also have approved. Yeah. This is how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about investing in biotech and kind of the time horizon you need for that. And are we looking at 10 plus years until something is really approved and some cash flow comes in the company and maybe a potential exit? It sounds to me like it's a lot longer, maybe some of the software companies, but I don't know how much longer. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely longer. It takes a long time to develop a drug. It needs to take time because you need to make sure that it's safe, of course, and that the drug does what it's supposed to do, because the human body is so complex. So even if it looks good in the beginning and you think that this is going to work and this has no toxicity, you never know what's going to happen when you put it into a human being. So when investing, you need to understand that. Our fund is a normal 10-year fund, right? And that is maybe sometimes too short for this because it takes time and it costs a lot of money as well. And that you also need to know when investing in a company develop a drug for sure. Then you should try to, that's also what we're doing, right? Trying to make the best strategic decisions so you can develop in the smartest possible way. Because if you do the right stuff from the beginning, you can shorten this time, right? Of course, you can't shorten the time it takes for FDI to review it, but there are things you can do to shorten the time. And there are also some paths within EMA and FDA, so you can fast track this process a bit.
And these are the regulatory bodies?
Yes, that's the regulatory body of Europe and US. So there are things you strategically can do to try to shorten this time, which of course is both beneficial for the patients in the end and also for making a return on the investment.
Exactly. And that's maybe where your value as an investor is not just a check you're writing. These are the strategic decisions you help them make.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay, so you mentioned already the FDA and EMA, right? The regulatory agencies in the US and Europe. So how long does it take for a drug to go from the lab until its approval based in these two different regions? And of course, there's a lot of noise going on right now with Trump firing literally a lot of FDA staff. Are you seeing delays? What is going on?
We don't see any delays yet. It's too hard to tell, but there's a lot of things going on. And probably when this podcast come out, there are already new things has happened, right? But it takes 10, 15 years from discovery to get a drug on the market. And then not all drugs go all the way. So it takes a lot of time and many different drugs to have one drug to reach the market. And that's a long time, right? And also healthcare costs, they increase a lot. So there's something that needs to be done here. It should be a key priority to try to decrease the time for a drug to develop. Because there's a lot of bureaucracy, I would say especially in Europe, for getting a drug approved and for making clinical trials. And also, in some cases, we see China being way more effective and maybe not as much bureaucracy in here. And we can really see how they pick up in some areas. So here, I think we need to feel this competition a little bit more. Because sometimes I get the feeling that Europe and US rely on the history, that we are innovative regions and we are making a lot of innovations reach the patients. But we need to be feeling the competition and really make this a priority and continue to develop this. And this is maybe something that I'm a bit afraid of can happen when they make so many firings within the US in FDA and also other supporting agencies for this ecosystem. I don't think they made any layoffs when it comes to those reviews, the applications for getting a market approval. But when it's this kind of uncertainty, I think the ones working there tend to take less risk and then maybe approve less drugs, because it's easier to say a no and then nothing happens than say a yes and what if there was something wrong with this application, right? So it also might take longer because they say, no, you need to prove this first. No, you need to do this first. So that's one thing that I think can happen. And then one other thing I think can happen is that it's not just review applications and say yes or no to new drugs. It's also developing new policies and all that as technology evolves. So I think that can also make things go slower. You are not on top of things developing no policies for AI, for example, and other new technologies coming up, which will delay the whole innovation environment, right?
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about AI, actually. Is AI not making the drug approval process go faster? One would expect that it could.
That's what I'm hoping for, AI and other technologies to actually make drugs come to the market faster and make more innovation, and then also make drugs cheaper, but also make drugs reach patients faster. And that's not just the approval process, it's from discovery, right? Mm-hmm. If starting to talk about AI now is used, for example, in discovery. When you develop a drug, you basically have a target. You decide a target that you want a drug to act on. So if you have a disease and you know how the disease is, or what's the reason behind the disease. So say that it's a target, that's something in the body that causes this disease. And then you find that you can actually target that thing that causes the disease. And then you want a molecule that specifically target that so the disease goes away. And how you do it still today and used to do it is you develop a lot of different molecules. And then you need to test each and every one of those in vivo in a cell to see, does it do what we want to? And then try to pick out the best possible molecule that does what you want. And now you can use AI for this. And then, of course, you need to have good data. But it can make the first selection. So maybe you don't have to try, 500 different molecules. You can take out 20, try those. And that will speed up the process. And then one thing that I think AI can help a lot with now already is also the more administrative part of it. The applications to FDA. Because those can be like 1,000 pages, right? So there you can save a lot of time. But I definitely think we will see AI more and more in drug development, which will, of course, lead to more innovation because we will be able to get drugs out faster. And once you have one drug out, you learn more about the biology and you learn more about that disease. And then you can develop the next generation of drugs within that disease. So it's constantly an evolving area. And I think I read, it was Roche CEO. He thought that AI is going to speed up the process by 40% in the end. And that's quite a lot.
Let's see.
Let's see. I hope so. I think so.
Exactly.
It's all about the data. And there's still so much in the body that we don't understand and know of. But in some parts of the drug development, you can definitely start to use it.
Wonderful. It's such an intriguing asset class from everything I'm hearing. And I would love to hear an example of a company you've invested in that is solving an important health issue. So please share an example of that.
Exactly. So we want to make women more interested in finance, right?
Yes.
And I'm also very keen on making investment that's improve women's health. So this company, it's called Henless. They are developing a drug for a disease called hidradenitis suppurativa. So yeah, exactly. It's actually very interesting that you asked that question because it's very common. It affects 1% of the population, but since women are affected even more, it's maybe 2 to 4% of all women that has this disease. So it's the same mechanism as acne, but think of it as huge acne in the armpits and in the groins. It's quite an embarrassing disease. I guess that's why many people don't know about it.
Yes, I don't think I've heard of it.
And it's really affecting your quality of life because imagine have big abscesses in your armpits and groins and it's chronically, right? It comes back again and again.
And is it like painful?
It's very painful. When I worked at the surgical emergency ward, that's where I did most of my clinical work. I saw these patients coming in during night because they didn't know what to do with the pain. So that's severe. And the thing is that you can't really help them there because what you normally do with abscesses is that you puncture it to release the tension and then the pain goes away and then you try to make it heal and treat it. But if you do that, it will just come again and again. So you can't really do anything. And right now you treat with antibiotics systemically or you can treat with topical antibiotics, but when it gets severe, you need to treat systemically or, the whole body with antibiotics. And then also sometimes take immunomodulating drugs, which also affects the whole body and the immune system in the body. So there's really no cure or no drug that actually treats the cause of the disease. But this innovation is a topical treatment, so a treatment that you take on your skin. And it actually, so just like acne, it's caused by clogging of the hair follicle. And that's when you get the infection, the pus development. But with this topical, you actually take away that clot. So the hair follicle can open and then the disease can't develop. Then you can't get this abscess evolving. It's really exciting, I think. We're still in early development, but we've tried it in humans and see nice results. And we also know that it's safe. So this is something, when you find something that really can treat the cause of the disease instead of just the symptoms, I think that's really, really exciting.
That does sound exciting. More of an autoimmune disease?
Yes, you don't really know why. We see that more smokers and overweight people get it, but you don't really know why some people get it or not. It's like acne, you don't really know, right? It's hormonal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And would you say, from what I just heard, it's a disease that affects a lot of women and there's no cure yet? And that just brings to mind the statistics about the gender health gap and how some diseases that affect women are really underfunded. Do you think this falls under that category?
Yes, maybe. It affects men as well, but way more women. And I don't know if it's just because it's more affected by women. I think it's a dermatological issue, and that's also been underfunded for many years. But actually, during the last couple of years, I've seen more and more biotech companies evolving, targeting hidradenitis suppurativa. So I think that it's definitely now more than 5-10 years ago.
Great. So how male-dominated is biotech when you're looking at the startup companies and the new companies in the space, as well as the venture capital firms in the space?
I don't know the specific statistics, but it's more men than women for sure. Like any other area, I think we see more and more women stepping up and take senior positions. But there's a lot more to do there, I would say, both in biotech companies and also in the investor environment.
What do we do about it? Like, how do we increase women's participation in the startup scene as well as the VC side when it comes to this sector?
I think it's many aspects behind this. What we need to do is really change our mindset from how we talk to our kids. As a woman and also as a man, you should feel that whatever you want to do, just do it and go for it. There's so many women that feel fear and that they're not good enough. And I think that is really a hurdle for them to step forward. So here it's really about how to talk to our kids to make them understand that if they work hard, they can actually do what they want. It doesn't matter who you are. And also feeling fear is never, ever beneficial for you. When I understood that, that really helped me. Because when you think about it, there's so many thoughts in your head. And then you start to feel fear or doubt yourself. And if you just start to think about the thought that made you feel like that, most often it's not true what you're thinking, right? So it's just your own untruth thoughts that make you feel fear. And some say, yeah, you need to feel fear when the tiger comes chasing you, right? Then it's intuition, then you know you're gonna run. Yeah. But here, sitting in Stockholm, there's really nothing to fear, right? Because it will only hold you back.
Exactly.
And also, I found that many women talk about hurdles. Like, we don't get to the top position because there's so many hurdles. So there is a hurdle when we're getting kids. There's a hurdle that we have a husband that also works a lot. There's a hurdle because the male CEO will not hire a female executive. And when you start to think of hurdles, then you become the victim, right? And we are not victims. And there are no hurdles like that. It's getting kids. That's like what's really developed me the most. And my husband, he also works a lot, but then I can discuss things with him and I learn a lot from him. And you need to choose the right husband, right? So you can really also do what you want. So I don't think men think about hurdles like that when they want to go after something. And so that's what we need to learn our kids as well.
I love it. And I think it's called the red car theory, where if you suddenly say, I'm going to look for red cars, then you start to notice them. That's all you notice, the red cars on the street. And it's the same thing with the hurdles. If you're always thinking, oh, this is a hurdle, this is a hurdle, well, that's all you're going to see. And your attitude and your effort is going to be affected.
Absolutely. You need to decide what you want and then be positive about it and feel that it's going to happen. And then it will happen.
Simple as that.
Yes.
I love it. All right. So speaking of women, then if you had some tips for women who are fundraising, then would that be one of the main things of not looking for the hurdles, the horrible statistics we hear, just don't focus on that? What else would be your advice?
Well, that's absolutely my top tip, and not be afraid about it. Be out there, do what you feel is the right thing and don't be afraid about it. And then it will be the same tips, of course, as for all fundraising, also men. It's really to do your research with the ones you're presenting for. It's like selling, right? You need to understand what the person in front of you wants and then present that. Because we see a lot of companies that just do their general presentation and it's either for people that don't understand the biotech or that they're trying to do some diligence on the investor first to make sure that you might be a fit and also to nail that first pitch, because it's really about the first impression.
Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't come in and start explaining what a molecule is to you then.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's actually a numbers game. You need to be out there, meet people, get to know people. Ask if you have someone in a network that knows someone to get introduced to people. As I said, we get 400 or 500 deals a year. It's always easier if somebody knows someone and they introduce a deal to me, then I maybe take a closer look. I don't want it to be like that, but that's the reality. It's somewhat biased because then you have this first proof that this actually have some sort of standard.
Exactly. And I will not help myself here and add one more thing I've learned through a startup community I'm part of, where they say, if you knew that the 50th time that you pitch your business, the 50th person will say yes, how fast would you try to get to that? You should be excited to get all the 49 no's because the number 50 will be a yes. So it's a great mindset for people to like just get through the no's, get them fast and just keep going because hopefully eventually number 50 will come.
Yeah, that's true.
So so looking ahead to 2025, what are some of the key trends in the biotech space that you're really excited about?
That's a tough question. I'm really excited about 2025.
Okay, why?
Why? Because I feel that it's a lot of good things that's going to happen. But I'm narrowing it down. We've seen in biotech, we've seen a couple of rough years and in the economy as a whole, right? So we hope that will pick up and we see some signs that it will in 2025 when it comes to, for example, M&A activity, and also a lot of biotech companies have had a hard time fundraising. The rounds been taking longer to close. So we hope that it will pick up at some speed. And also when it comes to different disease areas, so oncology is always high. But with that said, it's a very crowded space. There's a lot of development programs within. And then, of course, obesity will continue to be a hot area in 2025. The market, we see it's Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, right, that have obesity drugs on the market right now. And we see their sales just go up and up, but still there's a lot of market opportunity left there. And also a lot of drugs in development. So I would say those two we will continue to see a lot. I just mentioned merger and acquisitions. When it comes to IPOs, since 2022, the IPO window has really been closed. It's been very few IPOs in biotech, and we thought it was going to open in 2024, but it hasn't really happened. There's a lot of companies ready to go public, but still it's too much risk pushing the button right now. And so we hope that that will open as well, because that will give a lot of companies money to continue to develop. At the same time, there are a lot of companies waiting for IPOs that might get acquired instead. So the M&A activity has been quite steady. It's been some like mega deals, but when it comes to number of deals, it's been quite steady over those years, because pharma companies, they need to acquire smaller biotech. They have a bunch of drugs where the patent will expire. And when that happens, the price drops, because then other farmers can make the same drug and also market it. So they need to continue to fill their pipeline with new drugs. And I think they develop some internally, but they also need to fill it with acquisitions from external biotech companies. So here, that market won't decrease. They will need to acquire more biotech companies. So that's where I feel that this is quite stable over time. Then it's of course up to us to try to understand what pharma wants in a couple of years so we can make the right investments now for them to acquire later.
Okay, so IPOs still a little bit soft, M&A steady with some mega deals. How about valuations? Is now really a good time? Are the valuations you see in the startup scene okay?
They're low.
They're low. Okay.
But it's, I mean, if you just look at the public biotech valuations, since 2021, it's gone down like 50% almost if you look at the US. But we often look at the US because that will eventually happen in Europe.
So they haven't recovered since that low interest rate environment?
No, it hasn't. I think now people don't really want to take risk because people see biotech as high-risk investments.
And it is, right?
It depends, right?
Well, I'm talking to a biotech investor. But yes, in the grand scheme of things, yes.
It depends. I mean, that's why we're building a portfolio.
Exactly.
And this is where the high-risk biotech comes very handy, because we make some investments that are really early, really high risk, but of course also with the potential to give a high return. And then we have a base in our portfolio with more mature existing companies that is less risk, of course, still risk. We're a venture capital fund, but by diversifying the portfolio like this, we feel that we have a really good foundation for the portfolio as a whole to make good returns.
And the second group of companies in the portfolio that you mentioned with a little bit less risk, are those like later stage, like Series A and onward?
Yes, exactly. And come further into their development. So close to clinic or in the clinic. We know that some companies will fail because that's how this works. And some companies will succeed and hopefully give high returns and come to benefit for many patients. But going back to valuations, it's been a couple of or some years now where fundraising been taking a long time, and we came from really high valuations, right? Because people were just investing everywhere, right? So we've seen companies that had high valuation for 2 years ago, haven't been able to fundraise, and now coming back with lower valuations. So I think it's definitely a good time to invest now, because we see how the market is turning. We think that things will start to happen. So I think the valuation, they have bottoming out, because we see some numbers indicating that's the case as well, and that now they will start to go up again. Yeah.
Interesting. That's why I started in angel investing 3 years ago, because I kept hearing it's so low, the valuations
Really?
are so low. I was like, okay, let me look into this asset class. So I started at a good time. It's not that they went back to those levels, the really frothy levels of 2021. So it's still a good time to look into the space.
Yes, definitely.
So just to wrap up, if you had to summarize 3 key tips for our angel investors when they are investing in biotech startups, what would those be?
This is hard because biotech is hard. So I think my first tip would be to know, you really need to know what you're investing in, and reach out to experts, talk to others, because it's a lot of layers to understand. Then, of course, in drug development, it's very binary, right? If you have one drug and then there's a study, if the study fails, then there's basically nothing you can do. So it's one shot on this. Then, of course, it's a lot of things that you can do to de-risk it, but it's really binary. So, of course, you can also try to find the companies which have maybe several programs in development, several shots in this binary game, a little bit like we do in our portfolio, right? But there are also companies that have several assets. And often the company focuses on one program, but at least there's something more to go on if the first one fails.
And what is a one program? Like one molecule?
Yes, it can be. We keep it easy. I mean, you are not very strong alone. Biotech, it takes a long time, and it's also very expensive. So I think when investing in biotech, it's good to build a network and maybe invest several in the same, because you need money to follow one, so you don't get diluted, because it takes many years, as we talked about, and also it costs a lot of money to develop drugs. And then as a last thing, I guess I would say don't be afraid and be positive. You are assessing risks as well, of course, but you need to take some risks to be able to make returns as well, right?
And from my perspective as an educator, I always say you can invest in anything, but just size the position appropriately. So like we're talking about binary risks here, especially if you go really early stage, 1 or 2, programs in the pipeline. So then you really need to manage your position as an individual investor and, not get wiped out completely.
Exactly.
Wonderful. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your expertise and sharing your insights into biotech. I really enjoyed learning this new asset class.
Thank you. I had a really nice discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Investing and Other Stories podcast. You can follow us at Finance Latte on LinkedIn and Instagram. And you can follow me, Margarita Triantafilido, on LinkedIn, and Lovisa Backemar on LinkedIn. Thank you, and see you next time. Cheers. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. The opinions expressed on this podcast are as of the day of the recording and are subject to change without notice. The views and opinions of guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of Finance Latte AB or its host Margarita Triantafilido, collectively referred to as Finance Latte. Finance Latte is not affiliated with its guests or their affiliates unless otherwise stated. Finance Latte does not guarantee the accuracy or the completeness of the data presented herein. The information on this podcast is for informational purposes only, and the information, data, analysis, and opinions it includes should not be considered investment advice or tax advice, and is therefore not an offer to buy or sell a security. Finance Latte AB is not responsible for damages or other losses resulting from or related to the information, data, analysis, or opinions in the recording. Past performance does not guarantee future results. All investments are subject to investment risk, including loss of principal. Individuals should consider their own unique needs and circumstances and objectives before making investment decisions. Please consult with a tax or financial advisor for advice specific to your individual circumstances.